Fun video. Okay, so we've got some Knicks talk, okay? There was a moment in time where this seemed like it was going to be a fun story all the way through the season, but then reality sets in. So they've been able to stay a bit above water without Jalen Brunson, but Sham, shout out, reported over the weekend that the new timetable for Brunson is now either late March or early April.
That's not good.
No, it's not good, Lou. And I'm wondering, even then, are you concerned about what he will be like during the playoffs?
I'm not concerned with him in the playoffs. I'm concerned with the Knicks and where they are until he gets back. You know, they're 3-2. They're weathering the storm, but who have they beaten? You know, they're still losing to the top two teams in the East and the West. Like, we're getting to the playoffs. These are the matchups we're looking at. We know they're a good basketball team, but now this is a time of year where the good and the great, they're going to separate themselves. And right now, the Knicks are on the other side of great. They're not on the side of good, especially with Brunson being out of this lineup. That's what I'm more concerned about now. As far as this ankle injury, once you're back on the court with an ankle injury, 9 times out of 10, you feel normal. The thing that's a crazy caveat to an ankle injury is just how annoying and nagging it is that it goes on. But once it's healed, you feel like you're 100%. The knee injuries and all of those things, they usually stay in play for a while. I think ankles are a little different. So I don't see a problem with him returning and him not being as explosive and all these other things that he's always been. I think he'll fit right in. But I'm just concerned about this team going into that stretch. You know, if they're another 14 to 21 days away from having him on the court, who knows what happens with this team.
Yeah, a sprained ankle to me is honestly the best case scenario. It's not like it's a calf or a hamstring that's going to continue to linger and that could get worse that then requires surgery. This is staying off it. This is getting proper rest, proper rehab, which he clearly is during this time off. And if you tell me right now Jalen Brunson's out and this team stays afloat and goes 500 or slightly above 500, I think that is a win because Jalen Brunson is their everything. He controls their entire offense. He's the engine that makes them run. So with him out, that is a huge hole. They have to find stuff from Deuce McBride. They have to find stuff from Campaign. You know, OG's been really good since he's been out. Michelle Bridges, so you have to find stuff collectively when you have a guy that produces so much to go out. And they've done a decent job of doing that. Again, they play the Heat tonight. They think that's a very winnable game. So I think they can continue to win games just off their defense. Somehow they're a better offensive team than defensive team this year, which is surprising because with that starting five should be a really, really good defensive team. But yeah, I think the sprained ankle, it's a little concerning just because it keeps adding time, and that's weird with a sprained ankle. Usually it's pretty set. It's pretty, normal protocol to get you back on the court. So this is a little concerning, but as long as he's full speed for the playoffs, I think that's what they're going for.
It's the full speed, I think people are probably concerned, for the whole team in general. Last week was weird, too, because, the Michelle Bridges Thibs thing, Michelle Bridges telling the media that they'd met, and he said maybe the starters should get fewer minutes and let some of the bench dudes play. Thibs then came out and said that conversation never actually happened. And I don't know, Chandler. I don't know if there's something to be read into this, that there's a fatigue factor setting in, or like, why would this story even come out at all?
Well, it's weird that they're not on the same page. Right. Usually you kind of keep that kind of stuff in-house, or you have the conversation before just for this to not happen. They say completely different things. That's a little awkward, different. But I've seen the videos of, HART and Jalen Brunson on their podcast and Thibs calls, and it's all funny and it's good banter. So I don't think there's anything hostile here. I think there's probably a lot of ups and downs when you play for a guy like Thibodeau. And again, I think it can be you're getting your ankles taped for shoot around, like stuff like that players just hate. I'm sure that gets old real quick, especially when you're playing so many minutes and your rotations are already short. You're not the deepest team in the league, but I think it's all love here. I don't think there's much here. I think this is just a miscommunication somehow that got out in the public.
It's a pretty big miscommunication. For one to say we had a conversation.
Well, him just saying it never happened is very strange.
It's either it did or it didn't.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out at what point does Thibs take the hint, the elephant in the room that this is something that should be explored. Now, I'm not trying to tell him how to coach. I've never worn that hat before, and this is something that he's been excellent at. I think Thibs is an excellent coach, but he also has the reputation of running his guys in the ground and them not having enough to get the job done. And so while we're having this conversation at this point in the season, you kind of got to start listening. You got to start listening to your guys. Like, even if this conversation was had or wasn't had, at this point it's played out in the public so we can have an opinion about it. These guys are telling you they're tired. They're telling you that they want rest and they want to go into the postseason feeling just as fresh as any other team, especially if they're going to give themselves a chance to compete for a championship and come out of the East. They already have their struggles with Cleveland, and they have their struggles with Boston. You don't want these guys to also be fatigued and trying to take these guys down. So with this conversation between Josh and Michelle Bridges and Thibs and it playing out in the public, this is an opportunity for Thibs to actually have a conversation with his guys and say, what's needed? We should be all in this together. It shouldn't be a Thibs versus the guys or the guys versus playing minutes. Like, you've never seen a team full of guys complain about playing too much.
Right.
That's something that
It's usually the opposite.
It's usually the opposite. And so with these guys telling you that, that is alarming, and it should be something that he should consider listening to.
But I don't think he can.
And this has been his MO his whole career,
Yeah,
right? He's done this every stop he's been
It'd be
at.
cool if he tried it, right?
This is his MO. And
just try it.
And it hasn't worked, though. It hasn't worked. The ultimate goal is to win a championship. At least get to the championship.
Or at least, yeah, don't get to a certain point and then injuries and everybody's just not available.
Everything that points to being played and being overplayed leads to you not being able to fulfill what's expected of you and what you're responsible to doing. That's going out and competing for a championship. And then you get to the Marches and you get to the Aprils and you start seeing guys have injuries that are related to being overplayed. That's when this starts to have a conversation. But, you know, Chandler just mentioned it. That's his MO. I don't think he's going to change it. At this point, he's stubborn in his ways as a coach, and it is what it is.
I know, but it would be crazy and refreshing if he did try it. There was a moment between he and Josh Hart, actually during a game, not just on the podcast. But you know what? I feel like this is just sort of the relationship, right? Afterwards, they said there's no big deal here. Wow, that's actually...
Yeah, and listen, when you have a personal relationship with your coach, things like this are okay. You challenge one another, you try and get the best out of each other, and as long as you know it's not personal and it doesn't carry over, I think that's fine. I've had plenty of days, like JB Bickerstaff's my guy. We've mother-effed each other nonstop during the court, and afterwards, you know what? We go get a drink, we have dinner, and it's fine. It's nothing personal. But you have to have that relationship outside the court, out of that facility, to establish kind of that mutual respect. So I don't think...
It's not a big deal, but again... all of these things begin to be magnified when you're having a conversation out in public, especially with the narrative that's coming out of your camp. One guy saying you're having a conversation about something, Thibs come out and say, we never had that conversation, and then this plays out on camera. It's a bad look, especially with this team not having Jalen Brunson in their lineup, and they're going to go through a thing. They're 3-2 right now, but again, let's look at the teams that they've won these games against. So you're looking at the quality of wins, you're looking at who they're competing against, and the optics are bad. So I don't love this look for the New York Knicks, but again, when you have these exchanges with coaches, it could be a big deal, it could not be a big deal. Everybody says cool is cool, but obviously there's something brewing underneath in New York.
All right, Lou, if it started today, they'd play the Pistons.
Yeah.
What kind of expectations do you have for this Knicks team, really?
That would be a tough matchup for the New York Knicks. I like where Detroit is going. And again, when you're an up-and-coming team and you're hungry and you have an opportunity to knock off a team that they feel like is a better team than you, you're looking at a really, really good, young, motivated basketball team. They have toughness. They got guys that like to fight. They like to mix it up.
Yes, they do.
You got really good basketball players. You got hard workers. You got good coaching. You have the perfect storm to be a team that's going to be disruptive in the playoffs. And right now, with the New York Knicks coming into the playoffs like this, with them not being on the same page of communication, let alone not having your superstar guard on the floor for another few weeks, and what his impact would be once he gets back on the court, it would look a little shaky for New York. I still would have them coming out on top, but I think they would get everything they're looking for in a fight if the Detroit Pistons was to be that team to match up with them.
Yeah, if you look at this, they're going to play the Pistons, the Pacers, or the Bucks. That's how it's going to play out. And so none of those.
I don't want the Pacers.
None of those are, but none of those are an easy series.
Yeah, we want the Pacers to stay 4-5 with Milwaukee. Y'all stay there.
I feel like Knicks Pistons is an exciting match.
Knicks Pistons would be great. Again, people were saying that New York Knicks on paper are the best roster preseason going into this season. They have so much championship hopes. No one saw Cleveland doing what they're doing. Obviously, Boston's well respected, but they're going to have a tough time getting out of the first round, let alone compete for a championship. So no matter who they play, they've got to be healthy. They've got to be whole.
Good luck with that. We are going to take a quick break. It is March. The madness is upon us. After the break, Chris Jenkins. We're going to relive the greatest moment. 2016, ladies and gents.
Run it back, run it back, run it up.